I don't know where to begin, really. It all started out so well, at least I thought it did. My wife and I were once inseparable. We laughed, we fought, we made up. Our lives, our relationship, everything felt so perfect. But somewhere along the way, things started to change. And it wasn't just a gradual shift, it was like someone had flipped a switch. And the person I thought I knew, the woman I thought I loved, suddenly wasn't there anymore. It was one of those nights, the kind where you expect everything to feel normal. We had a quiet dinner at home, the kind we used to have before life got busy. She seemed distant, but I thought maybe it was just me overthinking. We ate, we talked, and then nothing. She left the table early like she had somewhere else to be. I tried to follow her, ask what was wrong, but she just brushed me off. And that night, she slept in the guest room. She said she was tired, but I knew deep down that wasn't the reason. The next day, it was more of the same. We passed by each other like strangers in our own home. We didn't talk much, and when we did, it was like we were walking on eggshells. And then it hit me. Something was off, something I couldn't put my finger on. We hadn't been intimate for weeks, not even a kiss, nothing. It wasn't like her. My wife had always been affectionate, even when we were both exhausted from work or life. But now, nothing. I asked her about it once, casually. Why are you avoiding me? I said it lightly, but the words hung in the air, heavy and unspoken. She looked at me, her eyes a bit too wide, her voice too soft when she said, I'm just tired. But I knew. I knew that wasn't the real reason. She had never been a liar, at least not to me. But whatever was happening now was something neither of us could talk about. The days turned into weeks, and nothing changed. The distance between us grew. The intimacy that once felt so natural had completely vanished. I stopped feeling like I was a priority in her life. At night, when I needed her, when I needed that closeness, she would pull away. I tried everything: romantic gestures, flowers, small gifts, trying to relive the memories of us in happier times. But nothing worked. Every night, she would sleep in the guest room, claiming it was just more comfortable, but I knew the truth. It wasn't about comfort, it was about avoidance. And then it happened. I started feeling nothing. A part of me was broken, but I didn't know how to fix it. I stopped trying to fight for something that wasn't even there anymore. I had reached my limit. Whenever I needed her to be close, whenever I needed her to be mine, she was gone. Physically, she was there, but emotionally and mentally, she had checked out. I was no longer her husband. I was just a person in her life. And I didn't know what to do with that. I had never felt so alone in my own home. And that's when I started to question everything. Was it me? Was I the one who had changed? Had I done something wrong? No. I knew deep down I hadn't. This wasn't about me. This was about her. And that's when I started looking for answers, even though part of me didn't want to know the truth. I began to notice little things. Her phone always face down when she left the room, her sudden need for privacy, the fact that she started going out more with her friends, often coming home late. It was small at first, subtle, but I wasn't stupid. I started to pay attention. The first real sign came when she took a trip with some of her colleagues. It wasn't a long trip, just a weekend away. But when she came back, there was something different about her. She was distant, more distant than ever. And when I asked how the trip went, she gave me a vague answer, barely making eye contact. That night, she slept in the guest room again, and I just knew that something was happening. Something was changing in a way I couldn't understand, and it hurt, like hell. I didn't want to be the guy who jumped to conclusions, but deep down, I couldn't ignore the feeling that something was wrong. Yeah, and that's when I started asking myself the hardest question. Was she seeing someone else? But how could I prove it? How could I confront her without tearing everything apart? That's when I decided to take a step back, to watch closely and wait. I needed to know the truth. I had to. As the days went by, I found myself caught in a cycle of uncertainty and fear. I was no longer the man I used to be, the one who would come home to a loving wife, a warm meal, and a sense of peace. Now I was just a shell of that person, walking around in my own home, desperately trying to hold on to something that was slipping through my fingers. I tried to convince myself that things weren't as bad as they seemed. I wanted to believe that it was just a rough patch, that she was going through something personal, and that I could wait it out. But the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach wouldn't go away. It only grew stronger with each passing day. One evening, I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I heard the sound of her voice coming from the kitchen. She was talking to someone, and from the tone of her voice, it wasn't a casual conversation. It was intimate, soft, and dare I say filled with a kind of warmth I hadn't heard in a long time. I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was just a friend, maybe it was nothing. But then I heard her laugh. It wasn't the kind of laugh she gave me, the one that felt tired or forced. No, this one was real, genuine, like she was enjoying herself. It stung. I got up from the couch and walked quietly toward the kitchen, careful not to let my footsteps give me away. As I neared, I could hear her voice more clearly. Sam, and then my heart dropped. I heard a man's voice. It wasn't anyone I recognized. She was speaking with someone on the phone. The conversation was light at first, but then it took a turn. I miss you too, she said. When will I see you again? The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I froze. My mind raced, but I couldn't move. My stomach twisted in knots as her voice continued, so calm, so casual, like it was just any normal conversation. But it wasn't. She wasn't talking to a friend or a colleague. She was talking to someone she cared about. Someone she was hiding from me. Someone who had taken my place. That's when it all hit me. She was cheating on me. I didn't need to hear more. I didn't want to hear more. But I couldn't stop myself. I needed to know the truth, no matter how much it would hurt. I backed away slowly, or retreating into the living room. My heart was racing and I felt like I was about to suffocate. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't accept it. This wasn't supposed to happen to me, not to us. We had built a life together and now it was all crumbling. The next few days were like a blur. I couldn't focus on anything. Every time I looked at her, I saw the lie in her eyes. Every time she brushed me off, every time she avoided me, it just added fuel to the fire. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to scream at her, ask her why she was doing this to me, but I couldn't. I had to be careful. I had to make sure I had all the facts. I couldn't just accuse her without knowing everything. So, I kept watching. I paid attention to her every move, even though it was killing me inside. I started noticing other things, small things that she hadn't done before. The way she would leave her phone face down on the table. The way she would get defensive if I asked her a simple question about her day. The way she would avoid making eye contact with me. It was all adding up. One evening, I decided to take action. I knew she was going out with her friends that night. She'd mentioned it casually while we were eating dinner. I'll be back late, she said as though it was no big deal. She didn't ask if I cared. She didn't even check if I was okay with it. That's when I realized she didn't even care about me anymore. I waited until she left, and then I did something I never thought I would. I went through her things. I felt sick doing it, like I was betraying her trust in the worst way, but I couldn't help it. I had to know. And I started with her phone. I knew it was wrong, but at that moment, it felt like the only thing that would give me answers. I unlocked it and immediately went to her messages. There, in black and white, were the conversations I had been dreading. They were filled with flirtations, secret plans, and declarations of love. The name that kept coming up was Mark. Mark? Who was he? I didn't recognize the name, but it didn't matter. I could see the affection in every word she typed to him. There were pictures, too, pictures I wish I had never seen of them together, of her smiling in a way she never smiled at me anymore. I felt sick to my stomach. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, but I couldn't. I had to know more. So I read on, my hands trembling as I scrolled. I found out when they met, how they met, and how long it had been going on. It had been months, months of deception. She had met Mark at work, she had told me, a simple colleague. But the truth was far more than that. They had become something else, something intimate. They were more than colleagues. They were lovers. I stared at the screen, feeling like the world was closing in on me. How had she done this? How had she been able to lie to me for so long? I wanted to confront her then and there, but I couldn't. Not yet. I put the phone back, trying to gather myself. The shock was still fresh, but now there was a new emotion, anger. I knew I couldn't live like this anymore. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay, when I knew the truth. The love I had for her had turned into bitterness, resentment. I didn't recognize the woman in front of me anymore. But she wasn't the wife I had once adored. She was someone else, someone who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. The question that kept circling in my mind was, why? Why had she done this? Was it me? Had I failed her in some way? Or was it her own need for something more, something I couldn't give her anymore? I didn't know. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living a lie. The days after I discovered the truth felt like an eternity. Each minute dragged on, each second like a reminder of the betrayal that was eating me from the inside. I tried to act normal around her, tried to keep up the fade that everything was fine, but inside, I was falling apart. The woman I had loved, the woman I thought I had built a life with, was a stranger to me now. She wasn't the woman I married, no. This woman was someone else, someone I didn't know. Every time she came home, my heart would race. I'd brace myself for the inevitable, wondering if this would be the moment when I finally confronted her. But I couldn't bring myself to do it yet. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to face the reality that everything I thought I knew was a lie. And then one evening, after days of this unbearable tension, the moment came. I was sitting at the kitchen table when she walked in. She seemed different. There was an air about her, something in the way she moved that felt almost too calm, too practiced. It was as if she had prepared for this moment. She didn't say a word at first. She just stood there, looking at me, waiting for me to say something. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, but I couldn't hold it in anymore. "I know about Mark," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the storm raging inside me. She froze just for a second, before a cold smile crept onto her lips. "So, you found out, huh?" The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "So, you found out." As if it didn't matter, as if this was some trivial thing to her. But it wasn't trivial to me. This was my life, my heart, my everything, and she was treating it like it was nothing. "How long, Sarah?" I asked, my voice a little more strained this time. "How long have you been seeing him?" She didn't flinch. "It's been months," she admitted, her eyes meeting mine, without a hint of guilt. "Maybe even longer. But you don't get it, do you? You haven't seen me. You haven't seen us. Us." The word hit me like a slap. There was an us that I didn't know about. There was an entire life she had been living without me. "I don't understand," I said, my voice quieter now, almost pleading. "I don't understand how you could do this to me. After everything, after all we've been through." She looked at me, her expression hardening. "You were too busy. You were too caught up in your own world. And I was left with nothing. I needed someone who saw me. Someone who made me feel like I mattered. Mark made me feel like I was alive again. It was like a dagger to the heart." She wasn't even sorry. There was no remorse in her voice, no regret. She was justifying it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her everything I felt, every single emotion that had been boiling inside of me since I first found out. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I stood there, staring at her, trying to process what was happening. "Do you love him?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't hesitate. "Yes, I do." Those words, they broke something inside me. It was one thing to suspect, but hearing it out loud, it was like everything I knew, everything I believed about our relationship, had just been shattered into a million pieces. I took a step back, almost as if I was physically retreating from her. "I don't even know who you are anymore," I whispered. She stepped closer, her eyes softening for just a moment, but it was too late. "I'm sorry, but it's too late for apologies. I've made my choice. Mark is who I want. And I think you've known that for a while now, haven't you?" I shook my head. "No, I didn't. I didn't know anything. I trusted you, Sarah. I trusted you with everything." She didn't respond to that. She just stood there, looking at me, as if waiting for me to accept the inevitable. I felt like I was suffocating. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This wasn't the life I had signed up for. This wasn't the love I had imagined when we first got married. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I don't know what to do anymore," I admitted, my voice cracking. I don't know if I can keep living like this. Sarah didn't say anything at first. She just looked at me with a mix of indifference and something else, something that I couldn't place. It was like she had already checked out, emotionally, years ago. I think it's time we face the truth, she finally said, her voice surprisingly calm. We're not the same people anymore. I'm not the woman you married, and you're not the man I need. Maybe it's time we move on. The words hit me like a freight train, and I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. Move on? After everything? After years of our lives together, she was telling me it was time to move on. I stood there, my mind racing, my heart shattering with every word she said. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to fight for something that was already dead. Are you leaving? I asked, my voice small, almost desperate. She didn't answer at first. She just looked at me, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke. Yes, she said, her voice firm. I'm leaving. I'm not the person you think I am anymore, and I can't keep pretending. And just like that, my world was turned upside down. The sound of her footsteps as she walked away was deafening. It echoed in the empty space of the house, a stark reminder of what had just been lost. I stood there, rooted to the spot, unable to move or speak, as she gathered her things. It felt like my world had suddenly crumbled around me, and all I could do was watch. She didn't even look back. I wanted to stop her. I wanted to run after her, beg her to stay, tell her how much I loved her, how much I needed her. But a part of me, something deep inside, knew it was pointless. The love I'd given her was no longer enough. It was never going to be enough. The days that followed were a blur. I couldn't focus on anything. Every part of me was consumed by the fact that she was gone, that the life I had built was no longer mine. I spent hours in silence, walking through the empty rooms, sitting in the dark, trying to piece together what had gone wrong. I replayed every conversation, every moment we had shared, wondering where the cracks had first appeared. But there was no clear answer. And there was no single moment when things had started to fall apart. It wasn't one fight, one betrayal. It was a series of small things, the little disconnects that had built up over time, the silent distance that had slowly turned into a chasm. I thought about the last few months, the distance between us, the way she had pulled away, the way she had started to sleep in the guest room. I thought about the times I had tried to reach out to her, tried to connect, and how she had always found an excuse to avoid me. It wasn't just that she was distant physically. She was distant emotionally, too. And now, I knew why. The realization that she had been with Mark for months, that she had shared things with him that she had never shared with me, cut me to the bone. I had always believed that our connection was special, that what we had was something unbreakable. But she had chosen him. She had chosen someone else, someone who had made her feel seen, someone who had given her the attention and affection that I had failed to provide. I wasn't angry at her anymore. Well, not just angry. I was heartbroken. I was devastated. But I wasn't surprised. Not really. I had sensed the shift in her long before I found out about Mark. The neglect, the avoidance, it had all been there, right in front of me. I had just refused to see it. And now I had to face the painful truth. She was never coming back. I spent the first few days in a haze, barely sleeping, barely eating. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the way she looked at me when she told me she was leaving. It wasn't the face of a wife who had made a mistake. Yeah, and it wasn't the face of someone who was regretful or conflicted. No, it was the face of someone who had made a choice and had no intention of going back. She was done with me. I remember the first time I went to the guest room after she left. It felt like walking into a tomb. The bed was neatly made, the pillows fluffed as though nothing had ever happened. But everything had changed. The air in that room felt heavy with memories, with the unspoken words that had never been said. I sat on the bed for what felt like hours, my mind racing. I thought about everything we had built to her life, our dreams, our future, and I wondered how she could just throw it all away so easily. Was it really that simple for her? Did she really stop caring about us, about me, so quickly? I had questions, so many questions, but the answers didn't come. And then, the silence. The crushing, unbearable silence that followed her departure. I couldn't bear to stay in the house anymore. Every corner, Every room, every inch of space reminded me of her. The house felt like a prison, one that held my pain and grief within its walls. I started spending more time outside, walking aimlessly around the neighborhood, trying to clear my head. But it didn't help. The pain followed me wherever I went. The loneliness, the abandonment, it was suffocating. I had no one to talk to. My friends had always known us as a couple, and I didn't want to burden them with my misery. Besides, what was I supposed to say? That my wife left me for another man? That she had been unfaithful to me for months? How could I even begin to explain that? It was around this time that I received a text from her. At first, I didn't want to read it. I had spent so long avoiding any contact with her, trying to block her out of my life. But something in Mesom's desperate need for closure made me open it. It was simple, too simple. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you find happiness. I've made my choice. No explanation, no apology beyond the words, I'm sorry. Just a cold, detached message that made everything worse. I read it over and over, trying to make sense of it, but I couldn't. It didn't feel like the words of someone who loved me, someone who cared. It felt like she was trying to ease her guilt, to make herself feel better about the choices she had made. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I didn't know what to say. And then the real weight of it hit me, and the truth sank in deeper than before. I had lost her. Not just the woman I loved, but the life we had together. The future I had imagined for use, our plans, our family, the memories we would have made was gone. All of it, washed away by her choice. But there was something else, something I hadn't fully realized yet. As much as I loved her, as much as I still wanted her back, I didn't recognize her anymore. The woman who had betrayed me, who had lied to my face, who had torn apart everything we had, wasn't the woman I had married. No, this was someone else. Someone I didn't know. Someone I couldn't love anymore. I had to accept that. I had to accept that I couldn't change her, couldn't fix what was broken. And maybe, just maybe, it was time for me to move on too. The weeks after Sarah left were the hardest of my life. I spent my days in a haze, drifting through the motions, pretending everything was okay when it was anything but. I'd wake up in the morning, and for a few seconds, I'd forget that she was gone. But then, as the fog lifted, reality would slam into me like a freight train. The empty space beside me in bed, the quiet house, everything screamed that she was no longer part of my life. I tried to distract myself. I threw myself into work, into anything that could keep my mind occupied. But no matter how much I tried to bury the pain, it was always there, lurking in the background. I couldn't escape it. I remember the first time I ran into her after she left. It was an accident, of course. I hadn't expected to see her, not like this. I was walking to the store, my mind preoccupied with the endless tasks I had to do, when I saw her. She was standing at the corner, talking to someone I didn't recognize, Mark. I couldn't mistake him, even if I tried. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and his hand was resting casually on her back as they talked. For a second, I froze. I just stood there, watching them. A sickening feeling churned in my stomach as I realized how right they looked together. She was laughing, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. And it wasn't for me. It wasn't for the man she had promised herself to. No, it was for him. The man who had taken my place. I felt a wave of anger flood through me, but I kept it in check. There was no reason to confront them. There was no point. I wasn't going to make a scene, not in public, not like that. But the truth hit me with a force that almost knocked me off my feet. She was happier without me, and she didn't feel guilty about it. She wasn't looking over her shoulder to see if I was watching. She wasn't sorry. She was free. I turned and walked away before they could see me. I couldn't bring myself to stand there any longer. I couldn't bear it. But as I walked home, the reality of it all settled in. I couldn't keep pretending that I still wanted her back. The woman I had loved, the one I had dreamed of spending my life with, was gone. She wasn't coming back, and maybe, just maybe, it was time for me to let go, too. The first few days after that encounter were rough. I couldn't stop thinking about her. I kept picturing her with him, the way she laughed with him, the way she looked at him. It cut me deep, but it also opened my eyes to something I hadn't realized until then. As much as it hurt, as much as I wanted her back, I couldn't deny it anymore. I had to move on. For my own sanity, for my own well-being, I had to let go of the past and start living for myself. I started doing things I hadn't done in years. I went out with friends. I picked up hobbies I had forgotten about. I focused on my work without the constant distraction of wondering where she was, what she was doing. Slowly but surely, the fog began to lift. The pain didn't disappear, not by any means, but I could see a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. It wasn't easy, not by a long shot. I still had moments where I missed her, where I wished things had turned out differently. There were nights when I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what went wrong. But every day was a step forward. Every day I was learning to live without her. And then, one evening, as I sat on the couch scrolling through my phone, I saw a message from her. It had been weeks since we last spoke, and I hadn't expected to hear from her again. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it. "Can we talk?" For a moment, I was paralyzed. My thumb hovered over the reply button, unsure of what to do. Part of me wanted to tell her to leave me alone, to tell her that she had made her choice and I was done with her. But there was another part of me, the part that still missed her, the part that still loved her, that wanted to hear her out. I took a deep breath and replied, "What do you want to talk about?" Her response came quickly. "I think we need to have a conversation. I've been thinking about everything, and I realize I owe you more than this." The message felt like a punch to the gut. I owe you more than this. She owed me more than an apology. She owed me the truth. She owed me honesty, something she had withheld for so long. I didn't know what she wanted from me, but I wasn't ready to fall into her trap again. I wasn't ready to let her walk back into my life like nothing had happened. But then, curiosity got the best of me. Maybe it was the desire for closure. Maybe it was the hope that she had finally realized her mistake. But I agreed to meet her. I agreed to hear what she had to say. We met at a small coffee shop, a neutral place where we wouldn't be interrupted. I walked in first, trying to prepare myself for whatever was about to happen. My heart was beating fast, my palms sweating, but I kept telling myself that this was just another step, a step toward moving on, toward getting the closure I needed. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked different. Her eyes were tired, her face drawn, like she had been carrying something heavy. She sat down across from me, not immediately speaking, just looking at me, like she didn't know where to start. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she said, breaking the silence, "but I need you to know that I regret everything. I've made mistakes. I hurt you, and I'm sorry." The words sounded empty to me. Sorry? Sorry for what? For betraying me? For choosing someone else over our life together? Sorry didn't cut it. Sorry didn't erase the damage she had caused. But I didn't interrupt her. I let her speak. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted to be honest with you. I've been with Mark for months, and I realized that I wasn't just running away from you. I was running away from myself. I didn't know who I was anymore, and I thought being with him would make me feel whole again." She paused, her eyes filled with something I couldn't place: guilt, sadness, or maybe just resignation. "I've been lying to myself too," she continued, "and I can't keep pretending that it was okay. But it's too late. I know that now." I sat there absorbing her words. They didn't feel like an apology. They didn't feel like an explanation. It was just too little, too late. I looked at her one last time. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Sarah. But it's over for me." The weight of Sarah's words still hung in the air long after she had spoken them. I sat there staring at her, my mind swirling with everything she had just confessed. But no matter how much I tried to understand it, to make sense of the mess she had left behind, the truth was clear. It was over. There was no going back. I had felt something break within me when I told her it was over. It wasn't a feeling of triumph or relief. No, it was more like the final acceptance of something I'd been denying for so long. We were no longer the people we had once been. And maybe, just maybe, it was time for both of us to finally heal and find the happiness we had both lost along the way. As I walked out of that coffee shop, I thought I was done. I thought I had finally closed that chapter of my life, and for the first time in a long while, I felt something akin to peace. I didn't have to fight for her anymore. I didn't have to chase someone who no longer wanted me. But even then, the emotional storm inside me wasn't over. It was far from it. What I didn't know then was that the universe had more in store for me, more than just the pain, more than just the loss. There was going to be restitution. There was going to be a way for me to heal and rebuild. But it wasn't going to come from me alone. It was going to take the intervention of someone I hadn't expected, someone who would help me see the value in myself again. A few days after meeting with Sarah, I found myself at a crossroads. I had spent so much time wrapped up in the wreckage of my relationship that I had neglected the most important person in my life, me. My self-worth had been tied up in her, in us, for so long that I couldn't remember what it was like to stand on my own. One afternoon, as I sat in the park, staring out at the distant skyline, I heard a voice behind me. "Hey there, mind if I join you?" I turned to see an older man with kind eyes, dressed casually in a worn leather jacket. He had a certain calmness to him, something about him that felt comforting and familiar, even though we'd never met. "Sure," I said, motioning to the empty space beside me. He sat down next to me, and we exchanged small talk for a few minutes, before he asked the question I wasn't ready to answer. "You don't seem like someone who's just having a rough day. You seem like someone who's been carrying something heavy for a long time. What's going on?" I paused. How could I explain the weight of what I had been through? How could I explain the emotional wreckage Sarah had left behind? But something about this man's presence, his quiet strength, made me feel like I could trust him. I began, and then the words just tumbled out. "I've just been through the hardest thing of my life. My wife left me for another man. I thought I knew her. I thought our love was real, but I was wrong. She betrayed me. She left me for someone else. And now I don't even know who I am anymore." He listened without interrupting, his gaze fixed on me, as if he understood my pain in a way I couldn't quite comprehend. When I finished, there was a long pause. He didn't offer any words of sympathy. He didn't try to make me feel better. Instead, he simply said, "You're not alone in this, son. We all go through things that break us down. But it's what we do after we're broken that matters. You're standing here, talking to a stranger. And that's a step. You're already on the path to healing." I was taken aback by his words. Healing? I don't know if I can heal from this. I don't know if I can ever trust again. If I can ever love again. I feel empty. He smiled gently, the kind of smile that wasn't patronizing, but understanding. "You can heal, but you have to let go of the idea that healing will come all at once. It's a process. You have to take it one step at a time. Let the pain be there, but don't let it control you." There was something in his words, something in the way he said them, that made me believe him. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't just drowning in my own sorrow. I felt like there was a way forward, even if I didn't know exactly how to get there. We talked for a while longer, and by the time he stood to leave, I felt lighter, like a small weight had been lifted from my shoulders. He didn't offer any grand solutions. He didn't give me a miracle cure. But he gave me something far more valuable: perspective. "Sometimes the people we love most aren't the ones we're meant to stay with forever," he said as he walked away. "But that doesn't mean the love wasn't real. You gave her all of you. Now, it's time to give all of you to yourself." I watched him walk away, his words echoing in my mind. For the first time since Sarah left, I didn't feel entirely broken. The wound was still there, but it was beginning to scab over, slowly, painfully, but surely. The next few months weren't easy, but with each passing day, I took the steps necessary to rebuild myself. I focused on my career, rediscovered old hobbies, and slowly but surely, I started to enjoy my own company again. I started to see my worth, independent of anyone else. It wasn't perfect, and there were days when the sadness would return, but I learned how to sit with it instead of letting it consume me. I even started therapy, something I'd always been too proud to consider before. It was in those sessions that I began to really understand how much I had given up for a relationship that wasn't right for me. I had lost myself in trying to please Sarah and trying to fix something that wasn't mine to fix. I also cut off contact with Sarah. At first it was hard, but I realized that any interaction with her was just keeping me tethered to a past I had to let go of. I wasn't the same person anymore, and I didn't want to be. It was only then, when I had truly started to heal, that I realized something profound. This wasn't just about her leaving me. This was about me finding myself again. Years later, I would look back on this period of my life and I would realize that it was one of the most painful yet transformative chapters of my journey. It taught me the power of self love, the importance of boundaries, and that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to let go. And that's exactly what I did. If you're going through something similar, if you felt betrayed or broken, remember this: you can heal. It's a process and it takes time, but it's possible. Don't let the pain define you. Find your own path, take it one step at a time, and trust that you will come out stronger on the other side.